All right. Welcome everybody. Hello and welcome. We are so glad that you're here for today's conversation. Today we're going to kick the year off by setting the tone for 2026 to help you turn possibility into reality. I'm so excited to have as our guest coach today, Lori Cunningham, to share some insights as we go along. So let me tell you a little bit about Lori. Lori is our next gen career and leadership coach who is passionate about empowering the next generation of professionals to develop leadership readiness. As the baby boomer executives begin to exit the workforce and succession plans are being carried out, Lori's clients are ready to slide right into those opportunities and become the next generation of executive leaders. Drawing on over 30 years of career leadership experience, Lori helps emerging professionals step boldly into their next chapter and shape the future of leadership with clarity and purpose. Lori, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a different approach to personal growth than the typical New Year's resolution approach for achieving goals. It's so common for people to pick a particular date in the calendar year, and most often it's the New Year. Sometimes it's a birthday or some milestone event that happens, like an illness or something, to create a resolution. But oftentimes, those are not the most effective way to achieve a certain goals. And we'll talk about why that is. But for today, we're going to talk about ditching that New Year's resolution approach. By February, most of us have already broken promises we made to ourselves in January. And oftentimes it's not because we lack discipline, it's because our setting might not be the ideal thing. And really, we often make these giant promises to ourselves that weren't designed for real life. When I think about like a New Year's resolution, you think, okay, well, I have a whole year to achieve this thing. So the thing that you want to achieve would be this lofty goals. Yeah, it'll take a year to do it, but then we jump right into it with big commitments that just doesn't fit into our current life. We have to consider that our current life is really already established, well established, whether you have kids that you take to school and you help them with homework every day, or if you have your work schedule, if you have a 9 to 5 schedule, or even if you don't have a 9 to 5 schedule, you know what your routines are. And so when you bring in some giant lofty goal to to just shove right into your current life, it's not easy and it's not sustainable. And that's the key is we want something sustainable. And research and surveys show that only about 8 to 9% of resolutions stick. So today we'd like to offer you a different approach for achieving your goals in 2026. We call this the micro shift method. Instead of setting lofty goals to form a New Year's resolution, we're going to walk you through a simple, repeatable, sustainable framework that you can use anytime you want to create change without burning out or starting over. We're going to show you how to evolve your life through tiny changes incorporated into your current way of life. You don't need a jarring, big change in your life to achieve this goal. And what's beautiful about this way is not only is it sustainable, it also removes our tendency to feel shame around not achieving this goal. It reminds me of the Japanese philosophy, Kaizen, which focuses on continuous incremental improvements that are baked into your normal routine versus large drastic changes. And in fact, this is a philosophy that has been proven in the workplace, in the manufacturing place by Toyota themselves, where that is their philosophy throughout their business. And we all know how successful Toyota is today. So why does this work and for effecting sustainable change? Well, it's incremental. You're not overhauling your lifestyle. It's flexible because it's incremental. When you have small changes and you go, this isn't quite working, it's not as jarring to make an adjustment as it is with a big change. It's not time bound. You don't have to do something that's like, oh, I have to get it done by this date, or it's not a milestone thing. You're adjusting your lifestyle one tiny change at a time. So you don't have to wait for a particular calendar date to start. If you skip a day, you don't have to say, "Oh, I failed." There's nothing to fail. You're incorporating tiny changes into your life. So you don't have to make any big breakthroughs. You'll just start noticing your life evolve one micro shift at a time. So get yourself some paper and something to write with, and as we're going to step through this method together. Okay. So let's start with the first step. The first step is understanding who you want to become. So I call this the who step. Instead of identifying what you want to do or accomplish, identify who you want to become. So I'll give you some examples. If you want to become a marathon runner, instead of saying, I want to run a marathon, you say, I want to become a marathon runner. And believe me, this mindset really does make an impact. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'll give you some examples. And instead of saying, I want to get a promotion, you might want to shift it to, I want to become a leader of my team. Instead of saying, I want to read more, you can say to yourself, I want to become an avid reader. So let's check in with Lori real quick. Lori, why is identity more powerful than specified goals when it comes to lasting change?
Yeah, and you've touched on so many of those points, but really identity is more powerful than goals because goals are sometimes things you do, but identity is actually who you are. And so as a leader, I've learned that behavior follows identity. So when you only chase a goal, your motivation is tied to external outcomes for that particular moment. So it might be a specific number, it could be titles, it could be timelines. But when you anchor change to identity, your actions become internal and they become automatic. So you don't have to force consistency. Consistency flows from that alignment. When someone says, I want to become a healthy person, they don't need the willpower to make better choices. Those choices simply match who they believe themselves to be. So when you say, I am becoming a leader, you naturally start thinking differently. You
Mm,
communicate differently, and you're showing up with greater ownership long before any title is ever given to you. So, identity based change removes that shame that you kind of talked about because there's no finish line to miss. And
mhm.
you're not failing or starting over, you're evolving. And that's the key word there is evolution. Each micro shift becomes evidence reinforcing that identity, and it's not a pass or fail test. So, this is why that micro shift method works. It respects how humans actually grow through those small, consistent actions that compound over time. And it's just like you said, the Kaizen in that business identity, that micro shift led sustainable transformation.
Yeah,
You don't have to become the next version of yourself in one big breakthrough. You become them one aligned decision at a time.
yeah. You're just living at that point.
You are. Yeah,
Oh, that's just so much more organic too. When you make that decision of who you will become, you're not just checking off a list. Yes, I ran today. Yes, I demonstrated empathy today. It's who you are and who you want to become. And when we think about who we've been throughout our lives, you're not you're it's like it's what's wrong with changing, right? Like as a child, adolescent, all the way into our adult lives, as you change careers, you become a different person, bringing with you a lot of those elements and then projecting forward into something you wish to become.
absolutely.
Really neat. Lovely. Okay, so in the chat or on paper, finish this sentence. In 2026, I will become someone who is fill in the blank. Who do you want to become? Think of a persona. Think of a someone that you admire, a role model in the thing that you want to become. If you're watching the replay, now is a good time to pause the video if you need more time. And otherwise, we're just going to move on to the why step. The why step is where we're going to get grounded on why this is important to you. The why step is a multi-layered why exercise to understand the thing behind the thing behind the thing. Why do you want to become this person? And then when you answer that, write this down too. When you answer that, why is that first reason of why you want to become this person? Why is that important to you? And then when you answer that, why is that important to you? So just keep layering to truly understand and to get clear on what drives you. So I'll give you an example. Why do you want to become a leader for your team if that's your goal? Maybe you want more visibility. Okay. Well, then why do you want more visibility? Maybe you want to be more influential. Well, if you want to be more influential, why is that important to you? Why do you want to be more influential? Because maybe you are interested in mentoring people. Why is that important to you? Maybe you want to make a positive impact on people and you want to share your knowledge. Do you see where this is going? Lori, what happens when people skip this step of really getting clear on where their motivation is for this goal?
When people skip the why step, they default to surface level motivation. And surface level motivation doesn't last. We see that in the statistic that you previously provided that 8% stick with their New Year's resolution. And without a clear why, that micro shift becomes just another set of actions to remember instead of meaningful choices rooted in purpose. And
Hmm.
people might start strong, but that moment life gets busy, it gets stressful, it gets uncomfortable, the changes fall away because there's nothing anchoring them to it. And the why step reveals the thing behind the thing behind the thing, the emotional, the value based driver that actually fuels behavior. And that's where staying power lives. So when someone hasn't done the work, they often chase goals that look good on paper but feel empty in real life. They burn out because they're pushing for outcomes that aren't personally meaningful to them. They abandon progress at the first setback because the effort doesn't feel worth it. And you know what? In all reality, they really never wanted to do it to begin with.
Hmm.
And so when the why is clear, small changes feel, like we said, purposeful. And it's even purposeful on those hard days. And so you're no longer asking, do I feel like doing this? You're reminding yourself that this is who I am becoming and
Hmm.
this matters to me. And
Yeah.
especially for this next generation of emerging leaders, clarity of why, it creates resilience for them. It turns that micro shift into acts of alignment and not obligation. And alignment is what allows change to compound instead of collapse. So if the who gives direction, the why gives the endurance.
Hmm. That's such a great insight. Okay. So for those of you watching, again, please write this down and figure out what's truly driving you to become this person that you have decided you want to become. The next step that we'll go into is called the what step. I forgot that I put these here. Yeah, yeah. Here's the what step. So you can all have that first foreshadow. The what step. All right. What is the what step? What step is this? Think of this persona or the role model. that you have in mind? What are the characteristics or behavior of this kind of person, or if this person, if you can imagine, you're a fly on the wall of this role model that you want to um, emulate. What does life look like for a person like this? And write these down. So I'll give you an example. Maybe if the person you want to become is a marathon runner. Well, maybe they run regularly, or they have friends who are runners, or maybe they have a desire to understand their body so they know how to fuel it properly and how to rest it properly and how to strengthen it, how to push through the pain without injuring themselves. Because let's face it, a marathon runner has to endure pain. This is just part of that process. And so maybe it's somebody who has a runner's magazine that they read, or a website or a blog. If they want to be a leader of a team, if you want to be a leader of a team, um, what are some characteristics and behaviors of a leader of a team? And Lori, I'm going to come and ask you about this because this is your expertise. But when I think of a leader of a team, this is somebody who earns the trust and respect of peers and team members. They maybe model behaviors that they want their team to exhibit. They maybe would have some accountability, and they assume responsibility for themselves and their teams. They fight for their team. What are these characteristics? So jumping into what Lori is an expert on as a career and leadership coach, can you please speak about, for those who want to be a leader in their team, can you please speak about what behaviors consistently build trust and respect in a team?
Yeah, and when we talk about leadership, leadership is a huge responsibility. It is so much more than just a title, and I think that's the first step, right? You realize this is a huge responsibility. And
Mm,
trust and respect aren't built through authority or titles. They're built through consistent behavior over time. And in my work as a career and leadership coach, the leaders who earn trust most consistently do a few things exceptionally well.
mm,
Okay. They do what they say they're going to do because reliability builds credibility. And when your words and actions align, people feel safe in following you. Okay. They communicate with clarity and honesty. That doesn't mean having all the answers. It means being transparent about what you know, what you don't know, and what comes next. Trust grows when people aren't left guessing, which ties into communication. They take ownership, okay, especially when things don't go as planned. Leaders who accept responsibility instead of shifting blame, they create those cultures of accountability and growth. And finally, they lead with integrity. So even when it's inconvenient, value driven decisions are made consistently. This is a signal to others that this is someone who's worth trusting. They have to be able to trust you. Now, I often, and you said it too, Amy, or Charlotte, I often hear leaders should fight for their teams. And while I understand what that means, I approach that with caution. I don't like
mm,
words like fight or defend. Um, Leaders need to be able to know when to represent their team, but they
mm.
also have to know when to have those hard conversations with teams as well. And that's just through that art of effective communication. These behaviors are all, grand gestures. They're those micro shifts that we're talking about. They're small, they're repeatable actions that compound into influence. And leaders influence people. That's what they do. We don't go around, we throw the term leader around a lot,
Yeah,
but really leaders are influencers. So when you
yeah,
consistently show up in this way, trust and respect become a natural byproduct of who you are becoming and not something that you have demanded. And
yeah.
if you're okay with this, I don't usually give personal references of myself, But I'd like to talk about how this micro method has, how I have adopted this through the years, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So for a long time, I separated my life into buckets. I had my personal goals here and I had my professional goals over here. And what I eventually realized is that growth doesn't actually work that way. I don't show up as a different version of myself at work than I do at home or in my faith. I show up as Lori. I'm one person, I'm a whole person. And so I shifted how I personally set goals. So instead of asking, what do I want to accomplish this year? I started asking, who am I becoming holistically? And what am I building towards over time? And that shift changed everything for me. So around that same time that I incorporated this, the church I attend began casting vision with real intention, not just setting goals for a season and moving on, but clearly articulating what we were building and why it mattered. And that approach deeply resonated with me. And I realized that vision isn't something you check off at the end of the year, it's something that you carry forward. And so what I did is I began anchoring my personal and professional goals to one central vision, keeping the main thing across every area of my life. And so my career goals, my leadership growth, my health, my relationships, and faith all became building blocks supporting the same foundation. So it just kept building and building and building. So it was stronger. And each year, the foundation stays the same, but it gets stronger. And those micro shifts compound year over
Hmm.
year. And the vision becomes clearer and the growth feels sustainable instead of exhausting because
Yeah.
we want to be this person here, we want to be this person here, and I've got goals for this over here, and I've got goals for this over here, and it's not sustainable because we're not collecting them together. And that is the power of aligning who you are becoming with the why it matters and what it looks like in real life. You're not starting over every January, you're continuing to build.
Yep.
And you know what? And this is how I coach. I coach the whole person, not just the pieces of them.
Yes, and I can t attest to that because Lori has coached me, and in I hired Lori as a business coach several moons ago, and but I find myself coming to her saying, "Okay, I'm struggling with certain things in my mindset and my personal being that is that that's poisoning my business endeavors. Bringing those two together, I am still the same person."
Mhm.
If I can ask you, how did you start? Because as you can see, our next step here is to pick one. How did you start that process, I guess, would be my question.
For me, it was about being very intentional. And
Mm.
so it was about what I wanted to see and being intentional about that in the way that who am I? Where do I want to be? Where am I going? Not just for this moment. So I think it definitely has to start with the who. You've got to know who you are. You got to understand the things that get you caught up. You have to transform, just like we've talked about, transform how your brain articulates it,
Mhm.
how it shifts it from a negative to a positive. How we speak to ourselves can totally change our outcomes.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was really that who am I? What do I want to be? But the why. Why do I want to be that? Because a lot of times the things that we think we want to be, and you start digging into it, you're like, I'm not sure that I really want to do that. Do I want
Yeah.
long hours? Do I want the phone calls on the weekends? Do I want so sometimes that transforms during the coaching process of what you think you want. And I treat myself as a client. I really do. I coach myself through. It's like, okay, what would you tell your clients? Let's write this, I could be a one-man skit actually, but it was really about the who am I, and really digging deep into that and why, and then just the endurance, and I am a instant result. I was an instant result person. Okay. We
Mm,
talked about that. Long projects weren't my thing. I want the instant. I want the instant. And I really had to teach myself to, number one, go through the process.
yeah,
It's like just take your time. It's building something.
yeah,
Take it, enjoy the journey, pick things up along the way. You're going to see things a lot differently. And training myself to do that has been the biggest. And there are times where I go back, I'm like, I just want to get it done. I just want to get it done. And some things you just need to get done, no doubt. But on those things that there is a process, it's like, okay, this is going to be beautiful when it's done. Just do it right, take the process and enjoy it.
yeah, yeah. And really looking forward to that person that you're becoming or that you
Mm-hmm.
have decided to become, if that's the case. This reminds me of a journey that my son has been taking. He just started the second semester of his sophomore year, at the beginning of this month. And before this, he was very involved in marching band, very disciplined when it came to marching band, but his grades, not so much. And by the end of the semester, he has pretty much all but given up. And I reminded him, you have a clean slate going into the next semester. We can't keep lamenting on the what has happened. We can't turn back time. One of the things that I often tell my kids when they're talking about remorse and regret about some action that they did, I say, well, the time machine is broken. It's still in the shop. It's waiting for a part. So we can't really go back and use the time machine to undo that. What would you like to do from here on Ed? And so it gets us kind of in the forward thinking mode. And I took a moment to ask him, okay, I know why I care about your grades. Why do you care about your grades? And he said something to the effect of, well, because I'm not a slacker. I'm not I'm not someone who I mean I care about my grades. It's just I mismanaged my time. I mean, he gave me all sorts of things that helped me understand. And okay, so who you think you are and who you want to become are they're kind of converging here. And so what are you going to do for the next semester? Like what does this kind of person who is not a slacker, who cares about their grades, what are their behaviors and what are their characteristics? Well, we started talking about more like scheduling his study hour, going to the library, and this is the one that he picks. If I can foreshadow the pick one, this is the one that he picked. He said, can you take me to the library after school or after rehearsal every day? And we're just gonna set that habit. And that wasn't the only thing he did. Like you said, it's who he was becoming. He also was diligent about checking to see what work he needs to turn in by a certain date, whereas he wasn't diligent about that before. And so these all these behaviors that he identified in his what step, um, we went to pick one. And the one that he picked that I helped him with, as I mentioned, was to take him to the library every day. And even on days when he didn't have much to do, he said, no, no, I still need focus. Will you please take me to the library? I was the one who's a little bit, do you really need to go today? He did it. He made it happen. He picked one, go to the library every day, and and let's
Mm-hmm.
get it done. And sometimes we were only there for 20 minutes. He's like, I'm done. We can go now. And I was like, yes, let's go. And so what was really cool about that is he made that decision and it was small. It was small enough because it didn't matter how long we were at the library. It wasn't we're gonna be in the library for 2 hours a day, every day. It was as long as I needed to be there. And it could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour and a half. And our range was that.
Mm-hmm.
So, for our audience here who's watching this video, pick one small behavior that you identified in that what step that feels reasonable and achievable, and and make it small because small is sustainable. So, in our examples that we've already shared, like maybe a marathon runner, you might want to begin by running around the block for 5 minutes a day before your morning shower, or taking a walk after dinner. Invite somebody, a partner, a friend, a spouse, a roommate, a child to come with you for that walk. And it's not that a walk around the block or a run around the block is going to turn you into a marathon runner, but it's the first step and it's sustainable. And it is really something that you're ingraining into your current lifestyle that isn't going to be super jarring. You don't have to sacrifice dinner time to go run 3 miles. Um, to start becoming that marathon runner. Maybe as a respected peer at your company, you might want to begin just by asking your peers how they're doing once a week. Yes, it sounds like it's a little bit of a check off the list kind of thing. This is how you start, though. These are the things that you decide this is the kind of persona I want to become, and these are the behaviors of that persona. Maybe if your goal is to become an avid reader, you might want to start with reading 5 minutes a day. No judgment here. You don't have to complete a book a week to become an avid reader. You just need to start. Just start. Okay. So is there anything you wanted to add, Lori?
Well, I was just going to say, so your pick one, after you went through that, now I understand what you were talking about from a pick one. And I'll give you an example of pick one that was really for me. I wanted to build connection. And we get into this thing where we introduce ourselves to people, but we don't really listen. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was their name? Like, I can walk away and totally just turn my back and not even realize I didn't pick up on their name. And
Yeah.
so that was really important for me was so that the next time I saw them, I would be able to reference them by their name. And so what I would start doing is they would give me their name, I would process it, I would repeat back to them. It was
Yeah.
nice to meet you, so and so.
Yeah.
And then I would write it in a notebook immediately after that. And so
Brilliant.
that helped. And those were habits that stuck that I could say, okay, I process that, and the next time I connect with them, they will know that we have this connection. Like I was paying attention.
That's such a great one. That's such a great one because you know what? Next time you see them down the hallway, you go, "Hey, so and so."
Yeah.
They will feel seen, recognized, and like you said, that connection is formed, and each encounter will just further deepen it. And you started it with that one thing that you picked.
Mhm.
Very good. And you know what? That actually ties us into the bonus tip. I can't see it, but can you see it? The bonus tip is a technique called habit stacking, leveraging external accountability. And this habit stacking is actually coined by, I'm reading the book, I don't have the book with me, the Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he talks about building new habits by taking advantage of old ones. And he calls this habit stacking. And Lori's example is such a great one. When I meet someone, because you're inevitably going to meet people throughout your life, the habit stacking is after you shake their hands and they introduce themselves and their names. The habit that Lori stacked was to repeat the name after having processed it, repeat it. And then the habit stack after that is to go and write it down. And so that's what habit stacking is. This is something that you already do um, in a given setting, given situation, and you stack it with a new habit that gets you closer to the who that you want to become. And so, aside from Lori's example, here's another example. If you want to read more books, maybe your old habit was to try to set aside time to read each day. And if that's not working, because I know this is an example because I tried to do this myself and it didn't work because I'm just not I can't sit still enough to sit and read a book. But the habit that I ended up doing was, you know what? Audiobooks. It's great. I can be listening to a book, which still counts as reading as I've been told, so I'm counting that. And I would stack that with other habits like doing chores or driving to work. And driving to work, my commute was like 12 minutes, 15 minutes on a bad day, thankfully. And I would listen to a book 12 to 15 minutes on my commute every day, 12 to 15 minutes on the way back. And lo and behold, I've got so many books that I've completed already. And I look back and I go, oh my gosh, I became an avid reader, didn't even realize it just by stacking that habit of every time I drive, I'll kick on the audiobook or when I'm doing chores. So that's one example. I mentioned my son, how we stack the habit every day after school, after work, when we after rehearsal. When I go to pick him up from school, that's the first thing we did was go to the library. And funny enough, when we first started doing this, going to the library, because now everything's digital, he's got his AirPods and he's listening to the lesson, and it's so tempting to just, oh, let me just watch a really quick YouTube video. Next thing you know, he's stacking the wrong habit. So that old habit actually was we were sitting across the table from each other as I worked on my things and he worked on his stuff. And he quickly realized that was not a good idea. And he actually came to me and said, I wasted so much time. Next time, will you sit next to me so I can maintain my focus? And so that's where he wanted to habit stack. On top of going to the library, he's going to sit next to me. Before we wrap up, I do want to acknowledge something. Very important. The fact that you're here listening to our video here, thinking about who you want to become, why it matters, and what small step you're willing to take already tells me something about you. You're not looking for a quick fix. You're not looking for what you're actually looking for is meaningful change that fits your real life and your current life. And and for that reason, I know we're not alone. And so what we want to do is we're going to be launching what's called the IEA, Inspire, Empower, Achieve Micro Shifts Club. Starting in February, we'll have this club available where we can come together and share lots of tips and tricks, such as habit stacking, setting up your environment, making those habits easy, making them achievable and reasonable, making them appealing and rewarding. Lots of uh, tricks, tips and tricks. I keep merging the two words together. And and with all these tips and tricks, not all of them will work for you. We have to find the right one that works for you. And so we'll be offering in this club all these tips and tricks to help you embrace and form those tiny habits that can turn into big transformations. So stay tuned as we continue to build this space to invite you to come in and join the conversation. What we'll also be doing is we'll be holding regular events on a weekly basis. We'll set aside some time. Think of it as like office hours, but it's like your office hours, but we will host and guide those office hours where we'll meet. We'll have some focus time to work on the thing that you want to work on. We're calling it the GSD sessions. GSD get stuff done, and you can use a different S if you want. Like, but this is what we're envisioning. So if you're interested in that, please stay tuned. Come and check in with us in Brave Voices. We'll be making an announcement in there, and we're going to get this space opened up, and it's just going to be focused time for us to work together, but together. So let's let's get that going. Lori, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. I always say this and I'll say it again. Every time I meet with you, I learn something new and about coaching, about myself, about where I want to go, what I want to do, and who I want to become. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, I will say my goodbyes. Thank you, everybody.